Not once or twice, but 3 attempts now on President Trump's life. This time by a radicalized teacher, of all people, a person responsible for educating your children. We wonder how we got here. But what do we expect when this is who is influencing the next generation? We send our kids off to school where they're taught by would-be assassins. When they come home and turn on the TV or scroll online to talking heads joking about the First Lady becoming a widow, it's sick and it perpetuates violence. But make no mistake, these are not just attacks on the President of the United States. These are attacks on the nearly 80 million people who voted for him. If something's not done soon, someone will get hurt. That's why the Justice Department intends to prosecute the suspect to the fullest extent of the law. I sat down with U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C., Jeanine Pirro, to discuss the administration's pursuit for both justice and peace. Judge Jeanine, welcome back. Loved having you on the show. Thank you so much. Listen, it's so shocking, I think, but here we are again. It feels like Groundhog's Day. We have another attempt on the president's life. I know you were there on Saturday night. You've since announced that federal charges against Cole Allen will go forward. And as we get more information on this guy, who he was, and all that took place, what is your office focused on right now?
Well, you know, Laura, as I indicated at the time of the presentment, there are presently 3 charges, some of the most serious charges in the federal code, and they are the attempted assassination of a president of the United States, you know, carrying a firearm in interstate commerce with the intent to commit a felony and discharge of a firearm, which has a mandatory minimum of 10 years consecutive to whatever he gets, and of course, attempted assassination of a president, his life in prison. But there will be many more charges added to this case, and that's what we're working on right now, to answer your question directly. We're trying to get a real digital footprint of this individual. And what we have learned so far is that everything that we have garnered up to this point is that he was calculating, he was determined, he was premeditated in his intent to commit violence. He did everything necessary in his mind to kill the President of the United States. And make no mistake, in spite of his, you know, manifesto, and in spite of the fact that he, like, exempted this agency, the Secret Service and Capitol Police and Kash Patel and a few other people, he said, I will still do what I have to get to the president and the high-ranking officials. So we now are collecting things like, you know, everything from his electronic devices. The FBI was incredible. They immediately went out, and I was at the command center for hours and hours over the weekend, you know, trying to make sure that we connected with his family members, with his sister, his brother, with people that knew him, with students who went to school with him. And to try to get a real picture as to what his intent was. And I think that this is an extremely strong case based upon what he did. That man had every intention of killing whomever was necessary in order to kill the President of the United States and the cabinet. So we are very confident, as was shown at the detention hearing on Thursday, that he will be held and detained until we get to the point of a trial. But we are very confident in our evidence. But having said all of that, Laura, I think that the important thing to note here is that there are people in this country who are applauding this individual. And that is a really very disturbing element to all of this, because he went in there like Rambo. He had a 12-gauge pump-action Mossberg shotgun. He still had the cartridge in the chamber. He had a Velcro-attached ammunition carrier to carry more cartridges. He had a .38 with a couple of magazines that was fully loaded. He had daggers and knives and pliers and wire cutters. He came in there like a bat out of hell in order to get in there to get to the President of the United States. And our concern, of course, is that this is, you know, we live in a society that's a free society, and these individuals are determined to kill your father-in-law and our President of the United States.
It is something that we think about in our family all the time. I think, unfortunately, a lot of Americans have had to think about this now, because this is the 3rd attempt in 2 years on this president's life. And you just pointed out that we have ended up here as a country because tensions are heightened, because the rhetoric has gotten out of control. The president himself, Judge, actually said we need to come up with more peaceful ways to disagree. Listen to what he had to say this week.
I ask that all Americans recommit with their hearts in resolving our difference peacefully. Everybody in that room, big crowd, record-setting crowd. There was a record-setting group of people, and there was a tremendous amount of love and coming together. I watched, and I was very, very impressed by that.
What do we do to ensure we don't end up back here? Because as far as I'm concerned, I don't know how many close calls one person gets.
I know, it's very frightening. And what we've got is the president who's calling for peace and calling for unification. And you know what? We almost had it in that room. And the president mentioned that and referenced that. I mean, here we were with, all of the journalists, all the correspondents, and, CNN and everyone, all of the networks. We were all there in a jovial, fun evening. And I think, Laura, that this is going to cause a lot of people on the left, at least the journalists and the correspondents, to say, hey, I was in the line of fire here. I could have been killed. Right. So it's not just the president anymore where it's kind of a distance. It's kind of what people say to protect themselves from being and feeling vulnerable. They say, well, it happened to someone else. No, it almost happened to you. And this guy has made clear, even though he calls himself a friendly federal assassin, he's willing to kill you to get to him. And the sooner Americans realize that, the sooner people in the media realize it, the sooner the people on the left who have called the president every name in the book, from Hitler to a Nazi to a traitor, what do you expect people to react? How do you expect them to react? When I was a kid, all right, and it was a long time ago, it was like Russia was the enemy. We had to run under our desk in case Russia came, right? And everybody hated Russia. Well, the young people today are being told the president is the enemy. He's this. He's he was during the Russian hoax. He's this and that. And they just grow up with that. And it should be no surprise that there are so many young people who think that political violence is the way to resolve conflict or the way to social change. And there is no respect for law and order anymore. People have just said, this is what I want. He's the enemy. He needs to be dead. And that's why law and order is so important. That's why I gave up the job, that people have at Fox right now, because it's time for us to pull back that veil of this hysteria and this leftist, communist, socialist nonsense and say, this is America. You follow the law and there will be consequences.
Well, I think that at the end of the day, my hope is that your words translate into reality. People start to realize this didn't happen to other people. It could happen to any of us. And we have to bring the temperature down. Just to change gears very quickly, I want to talk about the Federal Reserve and Jerome Powell. Last week, you announced that your office would be closing the investigation into the multi-billion-dollar building renovation, and that the Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, would be taking over this case. So what happens now? What led to that decision, first of all, and what happens now with this case?
Well, we had been in touch with the Michael Horowitz, the Inspector General at the Federal Reserve, and I spoke with him, and I indicated that what I wanted was for him to do his investigation, to complete it in short order, and get his conclusion to me. Because we have a federal judge by the name of Boasberg, you may have heard that name before, who has made a decision that I, as the United States Attorney, as a prosecutor in this district, cannot go into my own grand jury and present evidence or subpoenas to get the information that I need to find out, is there corruption at the bottom of billions of dollars of a cost overrun? Or is there incompetence? What is it? And a federal judge has foreclosed me from doing that. So I am appealing that decision. And in the interim, Horowitz is the man who can get the information. And I've indicated to him, we're waiting for your conclusion. And depending upon what you find out, I may or may not continue.
Well, I think that we'll be hopeful. We'll be watching. We want to get to the bottom of it. We don't like fraud. We don't like abuse. We don't like waste, for sure. as with everything with this administration, as you know, Judge, there are always critics. There are always people who have things to say about it all. A lot of people will say that maybe your decision here was motivated in some way to assist the president in getting his choice for the Federal Reserve chair in that spot. What is your response to that?
What I've always said is I'm in the legal lane. I don't care about the political lane. They don't even intersect as far as I'm concerned. But if I am prevented by a federal judge from getting evidence and information, then the only option I have is to go to the man who can get that information. And depending upon what he finds, I'll make a decision as to what I'm going to do.
All right. Well, we appreciate you so much,
It's
Judge
good to
Jeanine
see
Pirro.
you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody on Saturday night.
I know.
I miss you.
They're used to seeing you. They got me now.
They're used to you, and they love you.
Well, you are the best. Thank you so much.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.